Welcome back to Jokelore, America.
Well, friends, the long-awaited InfoWars relaunch has finally happened. That's right, the alternative media outlet founded by Blobfish lookalike Alex Jones has relaunched with none other than Tim Heidecker at the helm. Of course, this wouldn't have been possible without The Onion, who announced their licensing acquisition of InfoWars on 4/20 in this year of Grandfather Nurgle 2026. Now, to understand why this is such a significant event, why it's funny on so many levels, and why it actually benefits the Sandy Hook families, you need to know about the history. So this is why the InfoWars Takeover should be studied. By the way, please drop a like and leave a comment, it really helps me out, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Jokelore. InfoWars has been around for the past 25 years, and it became the institution for alternative news media, which basically means it was a content mill for outrageous far-right conspiracy theories.
They have sexual rituals, some of the most ancient Egyptian rituals.
This is where we get tested, so rejoice to God Almighty!
That's Hillary.
I remember walking around in the early 2000s seeing InfoWars.com spray painted under bridges and stuff. And Alex Jones has had an online presence since pretty much the invention of high-speed internet. The birthplace of InfoWars is Austin, Texas, which has become a well-known breeding ground for a variety of harmful bacteria. Alex Jones started his career on public access TV in the 90s, and you might say he was talking crazy off-rip, because he was swiftly fired after saying that the 1993 Waco massacre and the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing were orchestrated by the US government. And this would become a running theme in most of his stories. Anyway, this firing would prompt Jones to start his own alternative media outlet, InfoWars, in 1999. And his first breakthrough happened the following year in 2000 with the groundbreaking Bohemian Grove story, where Jones gained unprecedented access into the highly exclusive billionaire weirdo compound. This launched Alex Jones into global stardom and spurred on the growing popularity of InfoWars. And it would also be the only worthwhile story of his career. But it wasn't until after 9/11 when Jones would become one of the earliest and most prominent voices of the 9/11 truther movement. In fact, he was an executive producer and financial backer of the popular 9/11 truther documentary Loose Change: Final Cut. And it was around this time that InfoWars' popularity skyrocketed, with Alex Jones's parent company Free Speech Systems LLC primarily funding InfoWars through the sale of dietary supplements and survival gear, which were encouraged by InfoWars' steady supply of doomsday prophecies. This created a feedback loop of paranoid insanity, which ultimately afforded Jones a multi-million-dollar lifestyle. And both InfoWars and Free Speech Systems LLC would continue to make money off the fear of gullible people and routinely publish stories that led to the harassment of legitimate victims for over a decade. But it wasn't until after the 2012 Sandy Hook school when Alex Jones would finally lose his information war. After saying that the was yet another false flag operation and the families involved were all crisis actors, those very same families proceeded to sue Jones into oblivion, with the judge ultimately ordering that Jones pay the families a combined sum of about $1.5 billion. This move completely destroyed InfoWars and financially obliterated Alex Jones in one fell swoop. You love to see it. And this is where the story really starts getting magical, because it was around this time that the trustee appointed to Jones's estate decided that InfoWars must be sold. The sale would be done as a closed-door auction with a select group of bidders at the table. At first, companies backed by Jones, aka Jones's allies, placed a high cash bid on InfoWars in an attempt to keep it under Jones's control. And with this bid in place, there was no way that The Onion could afford to win the auction. But this is where the Sandy Hook families stepped in on some gangster shit, because they all agreed to take a lesser payout from the auction if The Onion won. And so, with the Sandy Hook family's backing, The Onion made the winning bid for $1.75 million in cold hard cash. However, this transaction wasn't as straightforward as you might think. Alex Jones would attempt to legally block the sale, but I'm like, with what money? And would successfully identify some issues with the auction and its bidding process, which caused the judge to halt the sale. With that, both Free Speech Systems LLC and InfoWars were transferred to a court-appointed state receiver named Gregory Milligan, and it seemed like all hope was lost. But then, in a stroke of legal genius, The Onion came back with a workaround. While waiting for the whole purchase issue to get resolved in court, they struck a deal with Milligan, agreeing to lease InfoWars and all its associated intellectual property for $81,000 per month, which they announced on 420 because obviously. It was also then that they announced Tim Heidecker as creative director. And Heidecker is arguably the top guy for the job, with his absurd and boundary-pushing comedic style and track record of parodying right-wing grifters. In fact, Heidecker actually reached out to The Onion first, asking about the job when he first heard about the potential sale. Anyway, back to the licensing deal. This way, The Onion can still gain control of InfoWars and its assets while waiting for the final resolution regarding the outright sale before officially relaunching. However, not long after, the sale would be blocked again, so The Onion turned around and said, "F it, we'll do it live." And on July 2nd, formally relaunched InfoWars and donated a lump sum of $100,000 to the Sandy Hook families. This gesture to the families, especially in light of their initial financial support of the purchase, really illustrates the relationship that was built between The Onion and the Sandy Hook families. And with that, the newly branded InfoWars relaunched earlier this month with 2 shows, Emergency with Tim Heidecker and The Jim Haggerty Show. The former being a direct parody of Alex Jones, with Tim Heidecker mastering Jones's signature gravelly voice, spouting insane fake news and taking unhinged calls.
Cindy Jo Hinkleman with us now, coming back from her trip, mine trip to hell. You need anything? Need some water or anything? What can you tell us about your journey into the river, down the river Styx?
In fact, you can definitely say they kicked things off with a bang, because the new InfoWars' first breaking story was that Alex Jones popped like a balloon. Like literally, like he exploded in his car. More recently, he spoke with a demonologist to prove his ex-wife wrong, and reported on the Make Austin Jonestown Already movement. Then there's the Jim Haggerty Show, and if you're an Onion fan, you may already be familiar with Jim Haggerty, the lovable yet dangerously stupid news anchor, and the star of probably my favorite web series of all time, Porkin' Across America. Well, it looks like Jim has finally woken up to the truth and denounced his traditional media career as a mouthpiece for the government, and has rededicated his life to exposing the truth, like why Big Pharma doesn't want us to know about fish milk, and the endangerment of trad wives and good old-fashioned Christian values.
Especially when you look at the facts. It feels that way to me, doesn't it to you? Oh, I'm sorry. You have permission to speak. For 35 years, I was part of the problem.
Needless to say, the relaunch has been hilarious so far, with so many good bits, and it's so much funnier when you consider all of the history behind it. Again, it's the layers. And I think the best thing is that while Alex Jones has done nothing to make things right for the Sandy Hook families, The Onion and Tim Heidecker are actually doing what Jones wouldn't, and are actively working towards paying the families what they're owed. And for all those reasons, I think the InfoWars Takeover should go down in the comedy history books. And well, you've reached the end of the video. I want to thank you all for watching and give a major shout out to my subscribers. I appreciate you all. Please drop a like and a comment, it really helps me out. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Jokelore. Fish milk. Look into it.